Hi, Janelle here with Sheep Hill Herbs. Welcome to my channel. I have about an hour-long teaching at historic Schaefferstown on making herbal tea. Just so you know, the camera angle is a little bit low, and that is because I didn't have my camera stand and didn't want to ask someone to hold the phone for an hour, so I propped it up against the teapot. But I think the message comes through. You can listen to the video, you can watch the video. Hope you enjoy it. And don't forget to check my description down below and like this channel. And thank you so much.
So last year I shared a little bit about myself, and I'll just do that again. Who was here last year? Okay, and then who wasn't? Okay, more, looks like more who are not.
Put the mic close in your mouth, not that.
Okay. So my name is Janelle, and I've been studying herbs since I was 20, about. However, my mom had a beautiful garden. She has a green thumb. I feel like she's more of a green thumb than I do. And so learning about plants started a lot sooner than in my 20s. I'm now almost 44, so I say I've been an herbalist for 20 plus years. I've done many certificates, and currently I'm working on my doctorate in herbal medicine just because I'm obsessed with herbs, and I just, whatever, I want to keep studying. So I had a shop in Harrisburg, which is not far from here, and my business is Sheep Hill Herbs, which it's still called Sheep Hill Herbs. However, I closed the shop about 2 months ago because my family and I, we moved to Reading, down to West Lawn, and it does not work for me to do daily commuting with, I have 5 children. So I was very, very sad to close the shop. I don't know if anyone here has been there, but okay. It was a cute place, built in 1800. But I'm on to a new chapter as far as my herbalism. I really love teaching people about plants and how to use herbs and making it understandable and easy. So the best way to see what I have going on is to follow me on Facebook, and that's just Sheep Hill Herbs. And then also to sign up for my newsletter. I'm going to pass this around. Name and email if you would like to receive that. I try to put it out once a week with where I'm having classes, and I'm currently looking for space to possibly rent in the Reading area for appointments. So I've, for many years, worked doing consultations where I sit with people and they tell me what they have going on, and I recommend different herbs, and in the form of teas, tinctures, capsules, salves. Today we're going to really just talk about tea, which is my favored and preferred way to incorporate herbs. I would say maybe tie with just cooking with your herbs, but tea was the first way, the first herbal medicine. Tinctures, extracts made with alcohol came much later on, encapsulation much later on, little pills that you can take, powdered herbs, and roll them with honey or something sticky to chew or swallow. That was also a later kind of invention in the herbal medicine field. But people have always made teas, and they're called different things. They're called infusions and tisanes and decoctions. And today I guess I'm going to focus on the infusion, which is the simplest way to make your tea. I'm also going to pass around, I brought a few copies of this booklet, I call it, that I wrote. It's on Amazon, and it describes the process of making herbal tea, which is not it's not as simple as just taking a bag out of a box and putting it in a mug. And I say I'm a tea snob in this book and also when I teach. So if you want to just pass these around, you can take a look as I'm talking. All right. Who drinks herbal tea on a regular basis? Okay. Who drinks loose leaf tea? Okay, lots of people. So loose leaf is your herb that just comes in a bag, or you have dried it yourself and it's not in one of those muslin little pouches. And loose leaf can be fresh or dried. And so I want to talk about the process of going from fresh to dried herbs and making your own infusions at home. So I do buy boxed tea, even though I tell people not to. I do buy them. There's some brands that are half decent in my opinion. But as far as like herbal medicine, or if I were working with someone, I would not tell them to use boxed teas to really make some kind of change in the body. Some brands, I like Yogi, I like traditional medicinals. If you go to a health food store, they usually have a higher quality box of tea there. You want to make sure that your teas don't say like natural flavors, although some of those flavors are pretty good, but we don't know what they are. And that they don't have some other like filler kind of ingredients. You just really want to have the herb in your bag of tea. But in some of the classes I teach, and I'm not doing it here today, I have everybody open up a tea bag and look at the contents. So I'll have you do that when you go home. And maybe you want to try it with a couple different boxes if you have a few different boxes. But look at the tea. Look at what was in the bag. It is usually the like rampant. It's like the throwaway herb, I guess, like saved. You know, the crumb, like the little pieces, probably after they processed. After they've processed, like let's say you have catnip and it's cut and goes to a farm or goes to some kind of herb company, then you have this like little leftover, like, you know, crumbly pieces. Or they process it really fine and cut it up really fine. The more you process your herbs, it loses value and it loses potency. So if you take, let's say you have a bag of peppermint or a box of peppermint with peppermint tea bags, open it up and look at it, and then either remember from today or compare it to dried peppermint that you just purchased loose leaf. There is a definite difference. You want to have tea that has a strong smell. It has good color, and it doesn't look like there's other things mixed in. Sometimes teas, like they actually like cut in straw or something just to like fill in and make the cost lower. So that's why I say I'm a tea snob, because you're not sure what you're getting when you get a box, and it's not, I would use it in a pinch. Let's say we had a cold or, you know, some kind of stomach ache. There are some box brands that are like Stomach Comfort or whatever. I've used them like instead of one bag, maybe like 3 or 4 to try to make it stronger. But I would much rather have like chopped up ginger or fresh peppermint or fresh spearmint and make my tea that way. Okay, so I went up to the garden and I wasn't sure if we'd get over there, and it looks like we may. And I picked a few herbs in various stages. Most of them are actually in their flowering stage. But what do we have here? I think this is catnip and it's flowering. We have yarrow. This looks like calendula to me, but the flower is a little smaller than I'm used to. And then I picked some mints. And so, and I think there was some lemon balm. All right. Typically, this is lemon balm. Typically, I cut my herbs before they flower. And that's typically what you want to do. Can you cut them when they flowered? Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I was going to ask you that. Why would you want to cut them before flowering? Anybody?
Strength.
Strength in what?
The tea itself. I mean, if before it flowers, it's stronger.
Yeah. So it depends. If you want to pick roses for the rose petals, we want the strength in the petals. Lemon balm, we are using the leaf to make our tea, so we want the strength in the leaf. So you cut your herbs before they flower when you're not using the flowering parts. Lavender, you would cut the petals, the top of the lavender, dry your lavender petals and have the strength in the lavender petals. Now, it's not, I should pass that around. So I am not smelling a very strong scent from the leaves, and the flowers are so small. Lemon balm flowers don't have a lot of fragrance, but I would cut this and I would use this as tea if I had missed that window, and my plants flowered before I had chance. The good thing is you can cut the flowering parts off, cut it back, and then you will have like a second growth, and you can keep cutting your plants and saving the leaves. So let's say I took my lemon balm or my catnip, which is here, and what I would do is pull the leaves off, and let's just pretend this is leaves and not flowers. So I would pull the leaves off. I would set them on like a paper towel, or I like to dry in paper bags. Most people ask me about using an oven. A dehydrator is nice. You don't have to have a dehydrator. I do not like to use ovens because you tend to burn your herbs by accident. You can over dry. They will burn. If you've ever made kale chips in the oven, have you done that? They burn. So you can burn your herbs and overheat them. So an easy thing to do is to take your leaves, put them in a brown paper bag, like lunch bag size, or if you have a large crop, I tell people to go to the grocery store and instead of getting the plastic bags, get the paper bags for your groceries, take them home, and then you can dry in the larger paper bag at the grocery store, or from the grocery store. So you only fill, and I forgot to do this, sorry. If you want to take notes, do you want to pass these?
I don't need to know.
If anybody does, if you want some paper.
Anybody? No?
Okay, you could just pass those pads around. So when you put your herb in a paper bag, you do not want to fill it all the way to the top. Does anyone have an idea why?
What's the question?
Mold. It needs airflow. So I have lost herbs. You only lose herbs once or twice, and then you learn. You need to only fill the bag about halfway. You fold down the top of the bag, and then you have to shake your bag like a couple times a day, So let's say you have the bags in your kitchen or pantry. When you walk by, to shake the bag a little bit. If there isn't airflow, then the herbs will kind of clump together as they're drying, and then mold will grow. You do not want mold on your herbs at all. That's another issue with purchasing herbs. My recommended company, if you're going to purchase, is Mountain Rose Herb. You can link to them from my Facebook page. I have a website link, Linktree, and Mountain Rose Herb is in there in case you forget. But they have super high quality herbs without any issues, a lot of testing on them. So you dry your herbs. So who's growing herbs right now in their garden? Okay.
Accident.
by accident. Has anyone cut and dried and then, did I ask that question? Have you done the process that I'm describing? Okay, so you dry your herbs, and then I always get the question like, how long? Okay, so it depends. If your house has humidity control, then maybe a week for drying. Sometimes I like to put a fan on in the room where they're drying as well. Like if you do not have air conditioning and it's humid, it will take a while. And I really don't like them to take a while to dry. I really want to kind of dry them within like a week or two. And they can, if you do not then store them right away in a jar, they can actually reabsorb moisture. So you have to kind of process them and like
you don't have to
put them
dry
in jars.
your tea
Jars.
though. You don't have to dry that. You can use it fresh, like the leaves, and just steep them, right?
Yeah, I am going to share
you're
about
going
that.
to share. Are you? Okay.
For sure, you can definitely do that. So the process I'm talking about right now is for drying. It's good for large amounts of herbs you have in your garden that you don't know what to do with and you don't want to waste. And it's good for saving for the winter time, like your canning. I spend so much time, I have drying my herbs. I never do any canning anymore. I used to do canning, and I like get jealous of my friends who I see still, they post all their pictures of their canning. I'm like, oh, I'm spending so much time with my herbs. I don't even get to like tomatoes or pickles or anything. So I guess it depends where you want to put your time, but I like to save my herbs, dry them, and then when they're dried, you want to put them in a glass jar with a lid. Make sure you label. This one does not have the date. I should have had the date on here. Put the date, and then you store your herbs in a dark cabinet or a pantry. So you don't want to store them in the sun. They lose potency. Same with your like herbs and spices that you're cooking with. Most of us have ours like right by the stove or maybe by the window. And they lose their potency with heat and sun. So that's storing your herbs. Now you can make tea from your dried herbs. And so I'm going to describe two different processes of making tea, either with the fresh or dried, and my personal favorite way. I also get people asking me how long your herbs will last, like how many years can you store them? And it depends on your home where you're storing them, but typically it's like 2, maybe 3 years. And then if you haven't used them, I would probably compost them or maybe turn it into a tincture. If I've had my herbs for a while, I usually make an extract, and that's with alcohol. You make a tincture, just because I don't like throwing them out. But I don't usually have them up to 2 years. I use them up. Okay, so I just described the process of drying, but you don't have to do that. You can just make tea with fresh herbs, which is my absolute favorite way to have tea. And while it's spring, summer, and into fall, I would say do it that way. So it's super easy. I just brought one of my mugs along. If I were going to make a cup of tea, I might go out to the garden and pinch, see if I can pinch a few herbs, put them in the cup, and then you just take your tea kettle on the stove, boil your water, pour it over your mug. It is important to cover your cup. It's like an extra step, but it really does help with steeping, keeping in the aroma and the strength of the tea. So a little plate or some kind of little lid, steep about 5 minutes. And this works for leaves and flowers. So I'm not going to talk about roots and seeds and berries today. There's a longer process of making tea that way because the material is harder and you kind of have to simmer some of the herbs, and that's more what's called a decoction. So to make a bigger amount, and there's so many different tea tools you can purchase. There's like beautiful teapots that are glass and you can see all your herbs inside, and you steep them that way. If I were to use this teapot, I would put, what I usually say is 1 teaspoon of herb per cup of boiling water. But I go heavy with my herbs, so I would say maybe 1 tablespoon is what I usually do per cup of boiling water. So if you know how many cups are in your pot, your teapot, then factor in the amount of herbs you need, put that in the bottom, pour your boiling water on top, and then I would just cover my teapot. And anyone have a tea cozy? They're like little sweaters to put over top of your teapot to help keep the heat in. That's nice for steeping, because I don't know about you, I like cold tea, I like hot tea, but I hate lukewarm tea. So I will not drink it if it's lukewarm. So tea cozy helps with that. But making a nice pot is good for, well, if you think you're going to drink that much tea, or if you're sharing, you have someone come over for tea. We don't often have tea time in this country or anymore, but it's nice to have a cup of tea with a friend. So fresh herbs, easy peasy. You just put your herbs in the pot, in the cup, pour the boiling water. Then I get a little bit fussy about the water too. I say, please don't microwave your water. Even if you're making a cup of tea for yourself and you just want to zap it, please don't. I won't go into all of the reasons, but the better quality water you have, the better tasting your tea will be. Have you had tea at a restaurant with like public water? It has like a chlorine kind of taste. So if you can get spring water or distilled water to make your tea, one of my first teachers, Dr. Christopher, he would say use steam distilled water. It pulls more properties from the plants into the water and makes it a better cup of tea and just has more nutrient value. So it's just like making a tincture. If I've had people ask me, like, can I make a tincture with wine? I'm like, well, you can. It's not really called a tincture, but wine is full-bodied. There's already so much in the liquid, so there's not as much room to pull more from the herbs. Same with water. If you have heavy water with minerals or chemicals, it's not going to pull from the plants the same as, clear, pure water. So water, it is important to have, and you can definitely tell a difference to have good water when you make your tea. Boiling the water is also important. I know, like, sometimes we just steam it or like are in a hurry and it's hot. It really works better if you do bring your water to a boil before you pour it on top of your herbs. Okay, so then dried herbs making a cup of tea. I usually say 1 teaspoon, and they're more concentrated dried, so I don't really stretch it up to a tablespoon with dried as I do fresh. When you're working with dried herbs, you definitely need a strainer. The fresh herbs, you don't need that so much. I mean, you can almost take a spoon and scoop out your herbs, or sometimes I eat mine out of my cup. But dried, it is a mess if you don't have a strainer. So there are so many different types of strainers. Mountain rose herb that I mentioned before has a lot of cute different strainers. There are some that just like sit right on top of your mug that go right inside. I think I have one of those. I really just like these little ones. And so what I do is have 2 mugs. If I'm just making a cup for myself, and I put the herb in my cup, pour the boiling water, let it steep, and then you have to pour into the second cup, the one you're going to use. Or I do a shortcut method, which is using an open saucepan on the stove. So you can, instead of using a tea kettle, like a whistling tea kettle, you can use a saucepan. And let's say I'm making 4 cups of tea. I put in about 4 teaspoons. Usually it's more than 1 herb. You can mix your herbs together. And I don't know, I don't think I put recipes in that book, but many places find recipes. Yeah?
Well, can't you just use the same cup? If you have the strainer, just take the strainer out. Why do you have to put it in another cup?
Because I put the herb at the bottom of the cup. Do you mean like if you
Yeah, if you have a strainer.
This one isn't deep enough. Like I would have to really pour the water all the way to the top. If I just set that on top of the cup,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of messy. The tea would just be like right at the top, and I don't feel like it strains as well. You could.
Are you talking fresh and dry?
Yeah. It would be better to have an insert that goes deeper into the cup so that your herbs are down farther in the mug. You know what I mean?
I have a lot of different ones. So I mean, I never use 2 cups. It's just, why make
Well-
the cup dirty when you can do it in one?
I know, it's an extra step, but that is what I do. You wouldn't have to. But I like to have my herbs start at the bottom of the cup.
And I have another question. Why can't you use the microwave if you're only making 1 cup to boil the water? No, that gets it hot.
Well, like I said, I wasn't going to talk about the issues of microwaves, but it does, food and water have a vibration, and you want a high vibration with both food and water. When you microwave, it alters both foods and liquids, and it makes it at a vibration that isn't good for the body. Now, can you do it sometimes? Sure. But as far as making the best cup of tea, I wouldn't use the microwave. I don't cook with the microwave. But I'm not here to bash microwaves. I'm just sharing with you my way of making the best cup of tea. So it's fast, it's easy, like if you have no choice, but I would say if you have a choice, boil it on the stove. Boil your water on the stove. Okay. Where was I? Oh, the saucepan. So that is another slightly easier way. You put your herbs in the saucepan, and then you want to bring it to. You don't want to boil them. So you want to bring it to a simmer, but because the herb was in the water as it was heating up, it does steep. So you kind of have to watch it though, because you don't want to boil it. Turn off the heat, and then you can just pour and strain right into your mug from the saucepan. And that is what I often do, because I usually mix a few different herbs together. Maybe I throw in some like seeds, like fennel seed I like in my tea, and that needs a little bit more heat for a longer period of time. So those are my main methods. Now, summertime is also a really good time to make something like sun tea. Who's done that this year? Okay.
Not yet. I'm gonna do it.
All right. Sun tea, you want to have big glass jar like this. cut your fresh herbs. I do not use dried herbs to make sun tea. Cut your fresh herbs. Usually people just do peppermint or spearmint. Lemon balm is nice. Put them in the jar, fill it up with cool water, and you let it sit in the sun. And it's extracted from the heat and from the sun rays. The tea will not get as dark as it does when you make it on the stove. So some people wonder why it didn't like turn darker. It's sort of like if you made mint tea, it's sort of like mint water. It has a different color, a different flavor. It's much more refreshing, I think. But now is a time to make sun tea, summertime. And then I do teach, I have a home herbalism course, and I teach students to do moon tea as well, because you can extract on a full moon. So when the moon is full, you can put your jar out overnight in the light of the moon, and again, it makes it a slightly different taste. So you know how people taste wines, and well, not everybody does, but like the wine tasters, and they can taste all of the different aspects and how it was made. Well, if you have had tea for a long time, that's why I'm being particular. You can taste all the what was in it, or what kind of water, or how it was made. So I'm giving you the options of how you can do your tea in a fancy way. But it's not just to be particular or fancy. It really will help you to receive more in health and wellness when you make your tea a certain way. Because it's not just having the slowing down aspect of having a cup of tea, the relaxing aspect, totally beneficial. But the original medicine men and women were making tea to help people get well. So just teaching you a little bit of those tricks here today. Okay. Any questions?
Is your class that you teach online that you're talking about?
Sort of. It's a digital format that you receive a document. It's 10 months of lessons, and there's a Facebook group that's online for it, and we kind of communicate back and forth. You send homework to me. People who are local, I do ask to come to classes so that you can learn in person, but it's like a hybrid version.
What kind of herbs go well together?
Okay. Good question. So there's two different types of herbs. I categorize them this way. We have our tonic or daily herbs, and they're herbs that have a sweet and pleasing taste. And then you have your medicinal herbs, and I usually don't make teas from them unless there's a real need. And they are like the more bitter herbs. Herbs that go well, everything goes well with the mint family. You want to sort of have one strong herb and then some like hints of other plants that kind of complement. So I like, for instance, this blend I make is catnip, lavender, and spearmint. So when I'm using lavender, I use a little bit, because if you have ever made tea from lavender, who's made tea from lavender, especially if you grew the lavender, it is very strong, very floral. So you just need a little bit. So when making like a recipe, we use parts, and I would use a much, much smaller part of lavender versus the catnip and the spearmint. For this recipe, I use equal parts catnip and spearmint. They kind of balance each other well. Chamomile is an herb that I think goes nicely with a lot of plants and has, I like to add one flower usually in my blend with the leafy parts of plants. Another formula I like is catnip, rose, and chamomile.
Could you talk a little bit about what is the taste profile of catnip? I do it for my cats.
Oh.
I was just trying it for them, but I never really thought about putting it in a tea. So I'm kind of curious, like.
Okay. I should have you try a leaf. Sort of like a minty oregano.
It's in the mint family, yeah.
It is in the mint family. It's not as hot.
It's not tasty.
Oh, I think it is. I like it.
Cats like it.
Well, it's really bitter.
A lot of the plants take some time to get used to. But yes, catnip is not just for cats. It has calming properties for people, relaxing properties, whereas the cats tend to get hyper. It helps us to relax. It has a full spectrum of B vitamins. I will drink catnip by itself. Usually I'll add like a little bit of honey, but for the most part, I'll blend other herbs with the catnip. I like lemon balm. Any of your culinary herbs, I think, make good teas, and they might seem strange as a tea, but basil, even dill, the fronds of dill. Sometimes I make like a strong cup of oregano tea, like if you have a little bit of like a sore throat, or if your vocal cords feel stressed, that can be helpful. Calendula, which I have in this jar, really nice, goes well with many herbs. I'm gonna cheat and look at my book. I think I have a list of what I recommend back here. Hibiscus is nice and citrusy. Hold on a second. Okay. So we have, some herbs have a very mild profile, like alfalfa. So I would mix alfalfa with pretty much anything. Alfalfa has a lot of vitamins and minerals, so I would add alfalfa to tea for that reason, not necessarily for the taste reason. Another herb I have here is blackberry leaf. So I love red raspberry leaf. That is a really good woman's herb. It does have like a citrusy taste, slightly earthy, citrusy. I will drink that by itself. It makes a very good cold tea, like if you cool it. Blackberry leaf sounds like it would be really good, but is pretty mild. It does not have as strong of a flavor as the red raspberry leaf. So I would mix blackberry with pretty much any other herb for its vitamin C content. Then we have like milk thistle, which is in a lot of blends for liver health. That is the seed. Anything that's like a seed is usually like a little bit of a flavor, like it has a purpose, but it's sort of like an addition that adds a little bit of like an extra flavor note. I think of like anything that grows in your garden that makes a lot of big leaves. Those are good for like your base of your tea blend. And then you're maybe putting in a little bit of flowers, maybe a little bit of seed to make like a full recipe. So
The hibiscus, do you use the leaf or do you use the flower?
the flower, I have a little picture back here.
Okay.
That's very citrusy. I had a class last year, we made hibiscus syrup, and very similar to making elderberry syrup, makes a beautiful color. So when you use hibiscus flowers in your tea, it will be like this purplish pink color. Even a little bit will really stain your tea. Very citrusy. It will curdle your milk, so you don't want to add milk when you use hibiscus flowers. Some other herbs that I like as a base, like in my tea blend, ginkgo or gotu kola. Both of them are brain healthy herbs, but have a very mild taste, so they are not overpowering. Other herbs that are good as like a base for your tea blends would be like oat straw or mullein, nettle.
Mullein, do you use you can use the leaf and the root?
You can use all parts. So typically the leaf is made into teas, and it's good for the lungs. The flowers are collected, usually turned into an infused oil. It's helpful for ears.
Okay.
So mullein has, I want to say like a musky,
It's
mild.
It's a horrible taste. It's very earthy, but I like to drink it just don't eat much. Straight.
It's good to try or if you are going to play around with loose leaf tea, I think it's good to try them by like each herb by itself. Get familiar with the taste. If you can try it fresh, like take a bite of catnip, then try the catnip dried in a tea, to really familiarize yourself with what it tastes like. That way, like say you buy a box of tea and you taste it and you're like, this doesn't taste how it should taste. But then you can know what you prefer as far as like what blends well together. My taste is a lot different than others just because I've worked with many bitter plants over a long time. Thyme, you can use thyme in your tea. Sage is a really nice tea. Rosemary, believe it or not. I really like fresh rosemary as tea. I just gave my kids dried rosemary tea the other day, and they're like, this tastes like soup. I'm like, just drink it.
You must drink tea all the time. I mean, to get all the properties out of your tea.
I don't drink as much in the summertime. I probably have about 2 to 3 cups a day. Does that sound like a lot?
It does.
In the summer, but in the winter, I drink tea like all day.
Okay.
I like to cool it. Summer, put it in the refrigerator and drink it cool. Red clover is another good like base for a tea blend. It is a blood cleansing herb and a women's herb. Sometimes they have a little bit of a sweetness to them, but it depends how old they are, how old the flower is. Lemon verbena goes well with lemon balm. I like to add a little bit of hops to some of my tea blends, like for sleep. Hops is really bitter, so I usually just put a teeny bit of hops. Just like the lavender flowers, just like sprinkle a little bit. So, any other questions about making teas?
With hibiscus flowers, do you use those dried or fresh?
Dried. And I purchased them. I know like Rose of Sharon is like in the hibiscus family. I've had a hibiscus plant, didn't dry well. I do not know the exact Latin name for the hibiscus you purchase, but most herb companies have like a smaller flower that's more potent than like, let's say, Rose of Sharon. Yeah?
What about the red raspberry leaves? How many do you put in to make a cup of tea?
Yeah, that's...
And is that supposed to be fresh?
I usually do it dried, but you can, if you want to pick them, they're a little bit spiky. Usually use a scissors to cut them off the bushes. They're fluffy, so I do more than a teaspoon. Like it's a weird, the texture of red raspberry leaf, it's large, like it puffs up. It's different than, peppermint or something when it's dried. It's like more dense. So I go liberally with red raspberry leaf. I would definitely do like a tablespoon fresh or even dried.
Doesn't it take longer though to brew because it's, it's so, to get a taste, to get the real taste?
I know what you mean.
Because I tried to do it and taste it. And I put more than a teaspoon.
Did you? For
Yeah.
1 cup?
I put a handful. And I couldn't even taste it.
Did you just put it in the mug and pour water on?
Yeah.
I would then maybe simmer it on the stove just to pull
so
more
that
out.
needs to be simmered. 'Cause
It doesn't have to be, but to make
Get
it
the taste.
stronger, yeah, I would simmer that.
More work, okay.
Well, what I'm
Can you do
this
it
isn't
with
about
overnight?
fast. This isn't I don't even know what those coffee machines are now. That you put those. This isn't Keurig. Okay. It's not. This isn't to my lifestyle with herbs is if you incorporate herbs, it's a slower lifestyle. It's not about being faster.
That's why I do it in a hurry.
Did I hear you mention Rose of Sharon, that you make tea with those flowers?
I don't, but Rose of Sharon is in the hibiscus family. You can, I would in a pinch, like if I had to or something, but I purchased my hibiscus flowers. I have tried to dry them and they get like brown, they're not very nice, so I don't use them.
And can you tell us more about your plants?
My course,
Your course.
I don't know if should I do that now or maybe if you want to ask me about my course, come up after the talk and I can share that with you.
When you're using the fresh leaves, is it better to bruise them before you pour the water in?
Good question. That helps. Yeah, you can crumple them up. People also ask me about washing. Like, I don't wash my herbs when I've cut them. Usually cut after it's rained. But just like if you make pesto, have you ever washed your basil and made pesto? It gets weird. It's like slimy. You really have to make your pesto with fresh, dried basil. So I don't like to buy store basil because, you want to wash that basil. But if you cut it from your garden, like right after a rain, I don't wash my herbs. Something happens to them when they have been cut and then you wash them. They don't dry the same.
Dandelion tea?
Dandelion, yeah, I forgot to mention dandelion. So I make tea with every part of the dandelion. No, I didn't do it this year, but often I pick the flowers and dry them. They do kind of puff, like you want to pick them early. You don't want to pick them when they're starting to like seed. So when they dry, sometimes they get like the puffy parts, but they still make a good tea. Then the leaves, of course, you can make tea with. Dandelion leaf is more bitter, so I drink it plain, but if I were making a blend, it would not be the main herb in the ingredients. And then the root, of course, you can use. Mm-hmm.
If you have picked the flowers and I have put them in the refrigerator and then I didn't have a chance to make the tea, how long can you keep them in the refrigerator? In a paper bag.
Oh, in a paper
after
bag.
you pick the flowers.
Only a couple days.
Is that all?
Yeah, usually they get funny. I mean, I would only leave them in maybe 2 or 3 days. I don't really put my herbs in the fridge. If I don't have time, I leave them out. I would dry it in the paper bag on the counter before I put them in the fridge.
Is there some sort of master list that tells you which herb's good for what medicinal purpose?
Master list. There's some books that I really recommend. I have a YouTube channel, Sheep Hill. If you put at Sheep Hill Herbs, if you go over to YouTube, put at Sheep Hill Herbs, and then put books in the search, Sheep Hill Herbs books. I do have a couple videos where I recommend books. If you sign up for my newsletter today, I can put a list of some books I recommend in the first newsletter that I send out. I have a very big book library, and I say if you're going to use books, try to get older books, and and that would be like 90s, 80s, 70s, like not after the 2000s, not after 2020, because not that there weren't anything, not that nothing good was written after then. There's a lot of censorship, and especially on the internet, and a lot of bad information about herbs. So collect herb books from like flea markets and used bookstores, or like I tell my herb students it's a collectible. It's called the School of Natural Healing, and big old book. I don't know what it is right now, like maybe $100, but worthwhile to get. If you find it at a thrift shop, totally pick it up.
I've never seen it.
But yeah, I do love Rosemary Gladstar. She's
Yes.
very popular name. She has great books. Penelope Odie. One day I'm going to write a much bigger book than this after my kids grow up. I'm
Do you
gonna go.
homeschool your kids? Do you homeschool them?
I have off and on. I'm homeschooling them again this coming year. But one summer I'm going, when they're older, I'm going to write for the summer.
You also use all your herbs for salads, and then do you eat the flowers also?
Some of them. Do I use all my herbs for salads? Like I'll add herbs into my salad. Like
And then, like, you eat the flower, you know, like for oregano, do you eat the flowers?
no, not usually. I mean, I really try to cut my herbs when they haven't flowered, like oregano.
Oh, but if you have a lot that you can't, you just have so many, you can't get them all, and so then you have the flowers.
I would cut that for tea, but I wouldn't put it in a salad. Flowers that I use in salad would be like the edible violets,
Nasturtium.
or nasturtium, maybe some calendula.
Why is that you wouldn't put the flower in? I mean,
I guess just the taste.
you don't, it's too strong?
I haven't ever had oregano in oregano flowers in a salad. Is it good?
It's stronger.
Yeah. Well, you can. That
It's
would
not
be
gonna hurt,
fine.
right?
No, that would be fine. Okay. All right. Well, do you want to? It's not thundering.
Yeah.
You can walk up to the garden.
Yeah.
When do we drink the tea?
Well, that's Emily's. Maybe. Do you? How do you want to do that? Do they get something and then go up to the garden? Because I don't. I'm done talking. If you want to ask me any questions about my course, you can come up and ask me. But
It's up to them if they want to walk through the garden first or.
okay.
I don't think Jackie will mind if I share after last year's program when you talked about lavender and we had a lot of foods with lavender in it. She called me the next day and she said, "How did you sleep last night?"